Mark chapter 8 verses 13 to 26. Contaminating yeast. He then left them, got back in the boat, and headed for the other side. But the disciples forgot to pack lunch, except for a single loaf of bread. There wasn't a crumb in the boat. Jesus warned, "Be very careful. Keep a sharp eye out for the contaminating yeast of the Pharisees and the followers of Herod." Meanwhile, the disciples were finding fault with each other because they had forgotten to bring bread. Jesus overheard and said, "Why are you fussing because you forgot bread? Don't you see the point of all this? Don't you get it at all? Remember the 5 loaves I broke for the 5,000? How many baskets of leftovers did you pick up?" They said, 12. "And the 7 loaves for the 4,000, how many bagfuls of leftovers did you get?" 7. He said, "Do you still not get it?" They arrived at Bethsaida. Some people brought a sightless man and begged Jesus to give him a healing touch. Taking him by the hand, he led him out of the village. He put spit in the man's eyes, laid his hands on him, and said, "Do you see anything?" He looked up. "I see men. They look like walking trees." So Jesus laid hands on his eyes. The man looked hard and realized that he had recovered perfect sight, saw everything in bright 20/20 focus. Jesus sent him straight home, telling him, "Don't enter the village." Mark chapter 8 verses 13 to 26. The yeast of the Pharisees and Herod. Then he left them, got back into the boat, and crossed to the other side. The disciples had forgotten to bring bread, except for 1 loaf they had with them in the boat. "Be careful," Jesus warned. "Watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod." They discussed this with one another and said, "It is because we have no bread." Aware of their discussion, Jesus asked them, "Why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes but fail to see, and ears but fail to hear? And don't you remember? When I broke 5 loaves for 5,000, how many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up?" 12, they replied. "And when I broke 7 loaves for the 4,000, how many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up?" They answered, 7. He said then, "Do you still not understand?" They came to Bethsaida, and some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus asked, "Do you see anything?" He looked up and said, "I see people. They look like trees walking around." Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened, his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. Jesus sent him home, saying, "Don't even go into the village."